when the New York Times titled "Billionaire No More." Patagonia founder gives away the company, and the whole steward ownership community basically went nuts because everyone was so happy about this. I'm really happy to welcome the chairman of the board of Patagonia, Charles Kahn, all the way from the US. Thank you.
Thank you. Um, 20 years ago, I was standing in a stream in Argentina with Yvon Chouinard, the founder of Patagonia, and fish weren't biting, and I said to him, "Yvon, what are you going to do when you get older? How's Patagonia going to keep going?" And he said, "It isn't. I mean, we're going to shut it down." He said, "My kids aren't interested in the business. They were in their late teens and early 20s. I don't trust anyone to run it. We're going to shut it down." Well, it's funny because I thought that was a really bad idea. And 2 weeks later, he asked me to join the board. And fast forward about 2 decades, here we are. I'm going to spend just a few minutes talking about Patagonia's decision to go purpose rather than going public, and our journey as a purpose-driven, steward-led company. I should say first that we're really honored to be here in your company and alongside many pioneering companies, small and large. We've already talked about Novo, Zeiss, Bosch, and many smaller companies as well, Firebrand, Organically Grown. And then we just got to hear about the John Lewis partnership, which is a really remarkable story. I was telling Dame Sharon, I live about 200 yards from one of the original stores, and it's a really remarkable place. And also alongside, some 7,000 benefit corporations, certified benefit corporations. So this is a movement that's growing and growing quickly. In fact, I had to update that number because it's growing so quickly. Patagonia is 50 years old this year. And maybe it'll help our conversation to say a little bit about its origins. Yvon never set out to be an entrepreneur. He is a dirtbag adventurer who happened to be a good craftsman who wanted to make good gear for his friends. That's it. And he would describe himself that way, by the way. That's not me saying something naughty about him. We've always, therefore, been a business unusual company, not a business as usual company. The family and Yvon have never been in it for the money. In fact, there's no Chouinard private jets, there's no yachts, just a dusty old Toyota and some flip-flops. I will tell you that this guy makes the legendary philanthropist and skinflint Chuck Feeney look posh. The worst day of his life was when somebody told him that he'd made the Fortune 400 list. He said it was the worst day of his life, that he'd never met a billionaire that wasn't an asshole. I'm sure I'm not allowed to say that. What Patagonia is about is human-powered outdoor pursuits, and our passion has always been to make great gear for our athlete customers. But as that founding team did their work in the early 1970s, they already began to notice environmental degradation, species decline, and the beginnings of climate change, and the damage from their own products, which were pitons that were driven into the rock to support climbers. This realization led, well, first to some great innovations in climbing gear, so we don't do that anymore, and to an early commitment to give 1% of the company's sales or 10% of profits to fight the environmental crises. And also a mission that was very explicitly purpose-driven long before that came into vogue. And that mission was simple, which is we make the best gear, we do no unnecessary harm, and we use the power of business to make change. Good stuff. And that served us for a long time. But in 2018, Yvon decided to go further. And without actually consulting anybody, he said, we have a new mission, and it's even simpler. Our new mission is we are in business to save the home planet, right? Big deal. Pretty cool. Sort of. I mean, then if you're running the business on Monday morning after you've been told you're in business to save the home planet? What do you do? Like, how the heck do you live that every day? And we spent the next 5 years figuring that out. We already were good at measuring our footprint. We already set difficult goals for reducing our footprint. We upped all of that and aimed to eliminate our carbon footprint, to eliminate the use of dangerous chemistries in our products, to sharply reduce our water use and many other impacts. We introduced Warnware, which said, anytime you want to send something back to us, we'll repair it or fix it at our expense and send it back to you. A circular way of thinking about our business. Of course, a classic Yvon, he said, that's good, we can do better. That's not good enough. And so this time last year, we all had a really hard think about how to prepare for the next 50 years of stewardship of this unique and unusual company. And that's what led to his decision to make this even bigger choice, which is to give away all of the shares of the company that were just held by him and his family and go purpose. So all of the shares of the company have been given to two types of trust. I think there are some people in the room who care about the details of these things. I guess many, right? Forgive me. The 2% of the shares that, in economic terms, that own all the votes are held by something called a perpetual purpose trust. And all of the economic shares of the company are held by a group of C4s. And for those not familiar with American law, that's like a foundation, but it doesn't have some of the benefits of a foundation. For one thing, when you give money to it, you don't get a tax deduction. Foundations are called C3s. Of course, the Chouinard family, who wasn't taking money out of the business, didn't care about the tax deduction. So this is a good structure. In the United States, unlike most European countries, C3s can't own companies. And so we had to come up with a structure that was slightly different. As Steen will tell us, C4s are actually pretty cool because you can do activism without getting in trouble. You can even do politics without getting in trouble, which we do. So I will say, because I know it's of interest to people in this room, we did look at other approaches to releasing substantial value to fight the environmental crisis. We looked at dual share listings, where we would retain voting control of the company but have it be publicly listed. We looked at selling part of the company to like-minded permanent capital or promised permanent capital private equity companies. Each time we went through the pluses and minuses, Yvon said no. Ultimately, this begins to corrupt our mission. And even if it doesn't happen while I'm alive, it'll happen in some future generation. And we also looked at employee ownership. We've just had a long conversation about it. And what the family decided, and this was in discussion with many employees, was actually we wanted the planet to be the owner. We didn't want to saddle the employees. We wanted actually the planet to be the owner. By making this move to steward ownership, we've joined many of you in the room, and I've named some of those companies at the outset. We like to speak about this publicly because it's our most earnest goal that we help this revolution, this evolution happen faster. I'm really excited to say that in the United States, a bunch of companies are actually starting to go down this path too. Some of you will have heard Michael Bloomberg's decision to use a very similar structure. Way bigger than Patagonia, sort of $60 billion of impact. And we hope that this moves the dial even faster. It is important to say for those on the fence that you don't have to make as big a move as the Chouinard family did. They did 100% of their shares. Much good can be done even by smaller moves. So, for example, MasterCard is 9% owned by the MasterCard Foundation, which gives away billions of dollars a year to their charitable interests. So, as you'll imagine, especially in the context of being an American company, we've been massively criticized for this decision. It instantly became a political issue. To the point where state governors in a number of states, red states, just saying, actually have put forward legislation to ban financial managers of state assets to even consider environmental, social, or governance goals. So what I would just like to note is that they can say whatever they want to say. They can have whatever battle of words they want to have. It's too late, right? The only question now is how, not whether the pendulum is swinging, but how far it swings and how fast it swings in this move toward responsibility and purpose. Surveys of investors show that most professional institutional investors already believe that environmental and social goals should trump short-term profit. And more than ever, consumers and employees are choosing companies based on these very same commitments. If you think about it for a second, if you're an endowment investor or a sovereign investor, a pension fund investor, anyone who has to think about 100 years or 1,000 years into the future, you're a fool if you don't consider these things, because you won't maximize long-term value, right? This isn't exogenous to running companies. This is central to running companies. Our view is that great companies actually have always been the companies that actually stand for something, that have values and that believe in and make commitments to their communities, not for their creation of shareholder wealth, right? This year, Patagonia was named, as it has been many years in a row, in the top group of most reputable companies in the world, based on criteria like product quality, trust, ethics, citizenship. Interestingly, so was Chick-fil-A. Does anyone here know what Chick-fil-A is? Yeah, so it's a notorious chicken sandwich company that doesn't believe in LGBTQ rights. So whatever. You couldn't find two companies, Patagonia and Chick-fil-A, that are more different from each other, that believe things that are more different from each other. But what I would say is both of them actually stand for something, and stand for something that people can see, and then make their own decision about whether they want to work there, whether they want to buy their products, or whether they want to be investors in that business. And I say that because those people who are against the movement that we're all part of often say that stakeholders, and especially investors, will be confused if we have goals that are other than making money. Rubbish. I mean, this simply isn't true. Investors have always been smart about what companies stand for. Big businesses also know that this narrow, extractive model of shareholder capitalism doesn't serve us. And leading institutions like the Business Roundtable and the World Economic Forum have tried to rebrand shareholder capitalism as stakeholder capitalism, and take into account employees and workers and society. Problem is that most of them haven't changed anything about the actual charters of their business that say what they're about. And anyone that has a normal Inc. business in the United States has only one goal legally under the law, which is profit maximization. So recently, as you all know, a more concrete movement around company responsibility has been gaining momentum across the world, the benefit corporation idea, where it is a legal form of corporate organization, now in almost 40 states in the United States and in many of your countries, to have goals that sit alongside profit maximization. We've also seen some really interesting moves in accounting bodies to add environmental and other impacts into the generally accepted accounting standards, and we've seen move by governments as well. So, capitalism brought us reductions in absolute poverty, longer lives through medical innovation, and many other improvements in our lives, along with great shareholder returns. But let's be honest, the naked form of capitalism did that at enormous cost, including increasing inequality, wide-scale uncompensated environmental destruction, and the fraying of the fabric of the communities and societies that we live in. We all know this is happening. And I think we all know, and certainly we know in this room, that change will be good for business, as well as the societies that we live in. We need to involve how we steward our companies, and we need purpose and commitments that go well beyond profits. There's not one way to do this. We're going to hear Steen talk about this. Let's let 1,000 flowers bloom, because it will have to have different models in different places. I'll just finish by saying companies have responsibilities for their workers, their customers, the environment, and yes, their investors. We can argue about it, but everybody knows that this is the case. No one's confused about this. Over time, the market will continue to work, and responsible, purpose-driven, steward-led companies will attract more investment, better employees, and deeper customer loyalty. Yvon always says, every time we do the right thing, it's good for business. And so I hope all of us can join together and make it true more broadly. I think there are many alliances that need to happen, especially amongst the kind of people in this room, and we need to bring more people into this movement so that we can build a better kind of world alongside this creativity. So with that, thank you. Do we have time? Okay. Sure, well, sure, or here, wherever.
Thank you, Charles. It was great.
Thank you.
Great hearing from you. We have time for 2 or 3 questions, depending on how long they are and how long you answer.
I'll do my part to be short.
Question?
No. Yeah. Well, we do have an Italian here who's told it to his government, and it worked, right? We have, how many, Eric? We have 4,000. We have 4,000 benefit companies now in Italy, and they were rejected 4 times in order to get there. So yes, but all of us need to speak with one voice.
No? Amin?
No?
Oh, sorry, there's one over there.
Yes, thank you. If you could quickly explain, like, what is for you the difference between like a purpose company and a benefit corporation, or what do you mean with it, and how could we get it more involved here in Germany or in Europe?
Right. Well, I'll probably make a hash of this. I mean, for me, the idea of a purpose-led company is, the broader umbrella. Sometimes we could say purpose-led, we could say steward-led companies. A benefit corporation is now a specific form of corporate organization that's enshrined in law in a number of countries that allow for goals other than profit maximization. To be a certified B Corp, you actually need to agree to be audited each year, and you need to agree to be audited against very specific social, employee, and environmental goals. So I think purpose is the bigger bucket, and benefit is one form of corporate organization, not at all the only one. And you have many foundation-led companies here that actually are a legal form of organization here.
Yeah, and that actually changed something on the ownership level as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a question.
We have a question.
Yeah.
Last one.
Thank you so much. That was really impressive. I have a question. We talk so much about investors. We talk so much about, like, we are family. We have to create this world. I would like to know what you think about that. Big companies like yours, maybe, were like really a bit safer, could also help like young companies. So could there be something like, I don't know about investment, but like to help more each other?
No, I think that's entirely possible. And many big companies have venture capital arms. We have one, it's called Tin Shed Ventures. And we invest in companies that help us advance our mission. Sometimes that's narrow, like you make a great recycled fiber using old fishing nets. That's literally one of our companies. And sometimes it's broader. We invest in solar energy companies that have better technologies. I think many big companies, especially technology-driven companies, are in the business of helping young companies also come up this way. Yeah. Well, so it's a conversation that we don't have time to have now, but I'd love to talk about that. I think endowment thinking is not always consistent with exit thinking. And I do work in venture capital, and I often remind myself and my colleagues, like, hold on, how would you do that if you had to hold this company forever? Because that's the right way of thinking about it, right? Okay.
All right.
Thank you,
Charles.
Thank you, everyone.